He built a wall of black stone and glass and claimed it would drink the winter sun.
You can't bottle the sun, Joseph. That wall is just frozen rock waiting to crack.
But it's warm. The sun is still in there, locked in the stone.
That evening, Paul Whitfield arrived with a brass thermometer and a leather notebook.
I am ready to log the numbers, Joseph. Let's see if your sun trap holds any heat.
It's not a trap, Paul. It's a battery. Black stone drinks light and gives it back after dark.
As night fell, the wall began to glow with a faint amber radiance, the stored day bleeding into the cold.
The surface is still warm, Joseph. Above 50 degrees. That's remarkable.
But outside, George Adler watched from the road, his breath a cloud of scorn.
A few hours don't prove anything. Wait till midnight. The stone will be dead by morning.
6 months earlier, Joseph had walked into George Adler's glazier shop looking for cheap glass.
Cracked panes is all I got for you, Vance. What do you need glass for anyway?
A south wall. To trap sunlight. Black stone behind glass holds heat after the sun goes down.
A sun trap. You've been reading too many pamphlets. It'll just freeze and crack the glass.
Joseph hauled the cracked glass and spent the summer fitting black basalt stones into the wall. By autumn, the wall was 3 feet thick and faced the low winter sun like a dark mirror.
So the dark stone absorbs heat during the day and releases it slowly at night? Is that the principle?
Exactly. Even in winter, the sun's thermal energy gets trapped. That mass keeps radiating for hours.
But what if it's cloudy for a week? The stone would go dead cold, wouldn't it?
Then we'll burn wood. But I've seen this work. The sun doesn't forget the stone.
By 8 o'clock, Paul had logged the first readings. The wall's surface held steady at 51 degrees.
It's dropping slower than I expected. The thermal mass is definitely buffering.
The stone was warm to the touch when I set the last block. Heat stays trapped.
By 11, the wall had dropped to 46. Outside, the mercury was below 10.
It's brutal out there. 7 degrees and falling fast. This wall is all that's between us and that.
It's still warm. Not hot, but warm. That's all we need.
But if it drops faster, we'll burn wood by 2 in the morning.
The sun's energy doesn't vanish. It just needs time to leave the stone.
At midnight, Paul held the thermometer against the glass. The reading came back, 44 degrees, but the coldest hour was still ahead, and the wall's heat was a finite resource. By dawn, the wall had dropped to 38. The cabin never froze, and Joseph had not lit a single log.
The numbers don't lie. The wall held heat for 12 hours with no fire. With no fire.
Or it was a warm night. You'll see the truth when real winter comes.
It was 9 below outside, George. The wall kept us above freezing all night.
You were breathing on it. A pile of rocks by itself is nothing.
Paul's chart showed a steady, slow decline, the stone releasing heat like a dying ember.
First cold snap with no sun, and your bottle runs dry. I'd bet my business on it.
Then you'd lose. The wall works, George. It's physics, not faith.
The general store just posted a cold snap warning. Clear skies, bitter frost. If the wall holds, the whole valley will know.
Then let it come. The stone is ready.
The cold snap rolled in with blinding sunlight and temperatures that plunged to 20 below by dusk.
The wall soaked up heat all afternoon. The surface is back at 60 degrees, Joseph.
Then no fire tonight. Let the stone remember the sun and give it back slow.
Through 3 nights of killing frost, the wall never fell below 40 degrees. The cabin held its warmth.
3 clear nights. That's luck, not proof. Wait until a real storm starves that wall.
The data is consistent, George. Thermal mass works. You can't argue with basic physics.
Physics? I've glazed windows for 30 years. A rock is a rock. When the sun hides, you'll freeze.
You keep moving the goal, George. What test would actually satisfy you?
But George's disbelief had curdled into resentment. He needed the wall to fail, or everything he'd said was wrong.
He'll never believe it. But the stone doesn't care what George Adler thinks.
The following week, a lid of gray cloud sealed the valley. The sun never broke through. Inside the cabin, the wall's amber glow had faded to a dead, dark gray.
I'll get the fire going. The stone has nothing left tonight.
It's the same as any other cabin now, Joseph. No sun, no stored heat.
And from the road, George Adler saw the smoke curling from Joseph's chimney.
There it is. The famous sun trap is nothing but a pile of cold rock. I told you all.
For 6 days, the clouds refused to lift. Joseph burned more wood than he'd used all winter.
If this lasts, we'll be out of firewood by the new moon. The wall was our margin.
In his glazier shop, George spread his version of the story with vindictive pleasure.
Maybe he's right, but it worked once. The sun can't forget the stone forever.
On the 7th evening of cloud, Joseph made a decision that silenced Paul. He would not light a fire.
You can't, Joseph. It's 12 below tonight. The stone is ice. You'll freeze.
I need to know. If the wall fails tonight, I'll admit George was right. But if it holds any warmth...
They spent the night huddled against the basalt, wrapped in blankets, breathing into the frozen dark.
I am reading 33. It's barely above freezing. But the stone isn't killing us.
The stone remembers. Even starved, it bleeds back what little it caught.
By dawn, Joseph's hands were blue, but his pulse was steady. The wall had held at 34 degrees.
34 degrees, Joseph. You survived, but you gambled with your life. This test proved nothing to them.
It proved it to me. The wall never died. It's a battery that never empties completely.
But they both knew the furnace of winter had not yet spent its worst fury. A hand-painted sign appeared at the general store. Historic blizzard approaching. Seek shelter by sundown.
The glass is tight. The stone is sound. All we can do now is wait.
I am staying with you, Joseph. 2 bodies will warm this place better than 1.
You know what we're up against. This storm could bury us.
I've seen the numbers. This wall is the safest place in the valley.
They stacked firewood to the rafters and checked every glass pane for cracks.
The sun gave us a few hours of charge. It's all in the stone now.
Then we trust the stone. No fire until we absolutely need it.
The wall held the last warmth of the day like a held breath, and from the north, a sound like a million iron wheels grinding across the earth drew nearer. The blizzard struck the ridge like a hammer. Snow erased the world, and the cabin groaned under a screaming white darkness that tore at the walls.
The surface is 40 degrees, Joseph. Against this wind, that's a miracle.
It's not a miracle. The stone is releasing the sunlight it trapped all afternoon.
Outside, the wind shrieked like 1,000 starving wolves. The snow hammered the glass without pause, a relentless white fury.
38 degrees. We're losing heat, but slowly. The wall is bleeding it back all night.
Then we don't need a large fire. Let the stone do its work.
They fed the flames only a few sticks, trusting the basalt to carry the long, dark hours.
It's holding at 35. I never thought a wall of rock could be a lifeline.
Bottled sunlight. They'll never call it a trap again.
By dawn, the blizzard still howled, but the cabin had not frozen. The wall had given back the sun. The second day brought no relief. The sky remained a bruised gray, and the snow fell in endless sheets.
It's dropped to 20 degrees, Joseph. Same as the air. The stone is dead.
Then we burn the wood, all of it, if we must.
Joseph pressed his palm against the dark wall. There was no warmth, no memory of the sun.
I was wrong. The sun does forget.
We can't give up. The wall held once. It can hold again if the storm breaks.
They fed the fire until it roared, consuming the dry pine hoarded from midwinter.
At this rate, we'll be out of wood in 2 days. Then it's just the wall and our coats.
Then we'd better hope the sun comes back, because I have nothing else to offer.
The blizzard screamed on, burying the cabin deeper. The wall a cold monument to a broken promise. On the third morning, a pale seam opened in the clouds. A shaft of cold sunlight struck the glass.
Joseph, the glass is warming. I am reading 41 degrees at the surface. It's starting to charge.
It's drinking the light again. The stone hasn't forgotten how.
For 2 hours, the weak winter sun traced across the black wall, and the stone swallowed every photon of warmth.
If we get a full charge today, the wall will carry us through another night, with almost no wood.
It never died. The sun never forgot the stone. I was the one who doubted.
By dusk, the wall was radiating again, a deep amber pulse that filled the cabin with borrowed sunlight.
We're going to make it, Paul. The storm can't starve the sun forever.
As long as there's daylight, even weak light, this wall will keep us alive through the worst.
But outside, the blizzard still clenched the valley, and the next white tide was already rolling over the peaks. The blizzard died at dawn on the 4th day. Joseph and Paul dug through the frozen drift until they broke into clean air.
We made it, Joseph. The sun is back, and your wall is still standing.
But the valley was a frozen graveyard. Cabins sat dark, chimneys dead.
There's no smoke from the Mathers place or the Coopers. They must have frozen.
George Adler's home was an icebox. Frost lined the walls, and he shivered under every blanket.
George barely had wood for a day. The glass man is learning what cold really means.
While others froze, our cabin held. The wall gave back what the storm tried to steal.
By noon, the sun blazed, and the black wall drank again, preparing for the next night.
We have to let them know, Paul. The wall works. It could save lives for the rest of this winter.
And as the valley stirred, the first knock of doubt came at George Adler's door. George Adler stood in his frozen parlor, watching the thin curl of smoke rise from Joseph's chimney. His own hearth was dead.
Joseph, I need to see it. I need to see the wall.
You've seen it before, George. You called it a trap.
I nearly froze last night. My glass knowledge didn't keep me warm. Please, just let me look.
Joseph stepped aside. George entered the cabin, and the first thing that struck him was the wall's deep, living warmth.
It's warm. After all that cloud, after that blizzard, it's still warm.
It's physics, not magic. The stone remembers what the sun gave it. Even now, it's charging for tonight.
I was wrong, Joseph. I'd give anything to build one of these in my own house.
You won't pay for the design, George, but you'll help me teach everyone else before the next cold snap kills more.
And so the glazier who had mocked the sun trap became its first desperate student, with the deadliest winter still far from over. Paul sat at the table and drew the cross-section. Stone, glass, air gap, every detail precise.
So the sun heats the stone through the glass, and the air gap keeps the cold from touching it.
Exactly. The glass traps the heat like a greenhouse, and the dark stone stores it all afternoon.
By evening, 3 shivering neighbors had gathered at Joseph's door, their homes still dark and frozen.
I am not selling it. Here is the sketch. Build it before the next cold snap kills anyone else.
Another family arrived, and Paul copied the drawing by candlelight until his fingers cramped.
We need more copies. I'll make them tonight and pin one at the store by daybreak.
I've got a stack of cracked glass panes in my shop. They'll work just fine. I'll donate them.
The valley stirred as black stones were hauled from frozen creek beds and stacked against south walls. But the sky had already begun to curdle gray again, and the next cold snap was gathering strength over the peaks. The cold snap hit 2 nights later, clear and brutal. The sky was a sheet of ice, and the mercury fell to 15 below.
I am reading 40 degrees in here without a fire. The wall is doing exactly what you said.
The numbers don't lie. Your house is warmer tonight than it's been all winter.
At the Miller place, where they'd finished their wall only the day before, the children slept without frost on their blankets.
It's not just my wall anymore. It's a valley wall. Anyone who builds it gets the sun.
But not everyone had finished. The Harris cabin, still without a south wall, sat dark and freezing, the family huddled around a dying fire.
They'll finish tomorrow. They have to. Another night like this, and they won't last the week.
By dawn, the sun fell on a flurry of hammers and curses, as the doubtful suddenly became the desperate.
I used to call it a trap. Now I am giving out my best glass to anyone who'll listen.
And Joseph, standing on his own doorstep, knew the real test was just beginning. Winter's deepest freeze was still to come. Paul finished his report and addressed it to the Eastern Journal of Practical Sciences, a thick packet of charts and sketches.
The world should know this works. Thermal mass and glass can change how people survive winter.
Write it, Paul. But while you mail papers, I'll help the Harris family finish their west gable.
The sketch went into the mail pouch, bound for a city that had never seen a mountain winter.
They're calling it passive solar architecture in Boston. But here it's just the Vance Wall.
I've got more glass. Who else needs a pane?
Joseph pulled stones from the frozen creek, working alongside the very families who had called the wall madness.
They called it madness. Now it's just walls. The sun doesn't care what it's called.
But even as the design traveled east, winter's iron grip was tightening for one last assault. And in the valley, the walls were finished, but the coldest month was still ahead. The coldest month passed, and when the valley thawed, the south walls stood dark and warm, monuments to bottled sunlight.
That wall saved my life. I called it a trap, but Joseph Vance bottled the sun and I was wrong.
You helped build them, George. That's what matters now.
In the tavern, no one laughed at bottled sunlight anymore. It was simply common sense. The Miller children played on a warm floor, the sun stored in stone at their backs.
The journal published the sketches. They're calling it passive solar. But here, it's just the Vance Wall.
I just wanted to stay warm. I never set out to change anything.
Passive or not, it works. I should have listened sooner.
The valley now had more south walls than any settlement for 100 miles. The sun was no longer something to fear, and Joseph, by his original wall at sunset, felt the stone's quiet warmth, a debt the sun never failed to repay. Paul found him there, palm flat on the stone, as the last light drained from the sky.
It's still warm. Just like that first evening when I didn't believe it would last more than an hour.
I didn't know it would last either, but the sun doesn't break its promises to the stone.
You were right from the start, Joseph. The whole valley is warmer now because you refused to listen to reason.
I listened. I just trusted the black stone more than any advisor.
They stood in silence, two men and a wall that had turned ridicule into a lifeline.
No one's laughing now. Your sun trap has bottled the sun for all of us to share.
Then it was worth every cold night I spent alone.
The sunset painted the valley orange, and the black wall drank the last light, ready to give it back through the dark. The promise was kept. The sun still listened. Spring came slowly to the valley, but the south walls stood dark and ready, a new architecture born of survival. In the town hall, Paul's original sketch was framed beside a brass plaque, "The Bottled Sunday, Joseph Vance's Wall."
The label says Vance's Wall, but Joseph won't even come see it. He's out at the Larsons' new build.
You don't need my name. You need more black stone. Let's get this gable braced before sundown.
He never sought credit, only warmth. A pamphlet titled Bottled Sunlight. The Vance Wall was printed by the county, with Paul's diagrams and Joseph's theories.
I never wrote a word. Paul put the science to paper. I just stacked the rocks.
And those rocks saved us. I've got glass for 6 more walls this spring. Who else needs a pane?
By summer, every new cabin in the valley faced south with black stone and glass, a quiet monument to a man who trusted the sun. And on a warm stone at sunset, a fading red arrow still pointed inward, where the sun never forgot. Years later, an older Joseph walked the valley, white in his beard, still in his green coat.
Every house faces south now. They all learned to bottle the sun.
He stopped where it had all begun, his original cabin, the black stone wall still standing.
You are still here, still warm.
The sun had not forgotten. The stone still drank the light and gave it back, patient as ever. In the years that followed, the idea spread beyond the valley. Passive solar homes appeared in colder climates, their dark walls drinking winter sun, but nowhere did it matter more than here, where a man and a wall first proved that the sun could be bottled. Joseph never stopped telling anyone who'd listen. It's just a wall of black stone and glass. The sun does the rest.
I was right, but it was never my secret to keep.
The sun still drinks into the stone. And on a winter night, in a warm valley cabin, a child draws a sun being bottled in a wall. In a cabin warmed by the same black stone design, an older Paul Whitfield sat by the fire and opened his worn journal.
The wall did what he said it would. That's all there is to write.
It wasn't magic. It was simple physics. And the stubbornness of one man.
I recorded every degree, but the real story is the stone that never forgot.
He turned to the last page and wrote the date of the deadliest blizzard. Then he closed the leather cover, the same notebook that had been his companion through the storm.
Thank you, Joseph.
Outside, the wind moaned, but the wall radiated its steady warmth, a quiet guardian, and the deadliest blizzard became a story told by firelight, its cold defeated by a wall of black stone. The sun still drank and the stones still remembered. The valley never forgot. A sign was raised on the old mountain pass, Vance Wall Trail. A young hiker stopped at the original cabin, placing a hand on the sun-warmed stone. In a valley schoolroom, a child drew a yellow sun above a dark wall, the crayon labeling it "Bottled Sunlight," the simplest lesson. The sun gives, the stone keeps, and far beyond the valley, the idea lived on in passive homes, dark walls drinking winter sun. The stone still radiated its patient warmth, a legacy of one man's faith, a sign on the mountain path, Vance Wall Trail. The valley prospered, its homes warm and its winters no longer feared. He bottled the sun, and the sun still listens. A red arrow still points inward, where the sun never forgot.